Hi YouTube, it's Erin and I'm coming at you to talk about all the books that I read in January. I do apologize for like changing my background with every video that I make. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not gonna pretend like I do, but I kind of like this setup. The light's really good here. I'm gonna keep working on it, but I think this is gonna be my setup from now on for like the 3 people who cared about it. So for the month of January I read 5 books and I only have 2 physical copies of the books, so a lot of this video is just gonna be like, what do I do with my hands? So I'm just gonna go in order. I have it written down and I'm gonna tell you what I felt about all the books. So the very first book that I read in 2019 was The Mist by Stephen King. I read that literally like January 1st and I finished it that day. I give that a 4 stars. So like I said in previous videos, I'm very new to Stephen King. I'm not super familiar with his work and I'm still deciding if I like it or not, to be completely honest. So at this point I've read Elevation by him, I've read a couple short stories, and then I read The Mist, which technically is a short story. And one of his bigger books, which I do have, like Nightmares and Dreamscapes, I believe is the one where The Mist was first initially published. But I read The Mist standalone, and yeah, I gave it 4 stars. Like I really enjoyed it. I was genuinely terrified. There's a chapter, I think it's called like What Happened to the Bag Boy. Amazing. Like genuinely, like I felt it. I was disturbed and I loved it. But I've noticed in what I've read, and I think this just may be what I've read, Elevation, The Mist, and a short story, and Everything is Eventual, I don't like how he writes women. However, I've only read a couple books and it could be just those books. There's just something about how he writes women characters, like women, and how the male protagonist interact with them. I don't know. There was just part of The Mist, and it's a really short book so I don't want to say exactly what it is, where the main character is like, I love my wife to bits, and like 3 days later he does something that's like kind of weird. I don't know. Either way, it just like kind of rubbed me the wrong way, but overall I loved The Mist. I really enjoyed it. 4 stars. The second book that I read in January was part of the Buzzwordathon by Books and Lala, and my reading is odd. So that was, the buzzword was lie. So lying, liar, lies. You get the picture. So I read 2 books for that. I read Big Little Lies by Liane Moriarty, which I do have a physical copy of. So this is a domestic thriller. And I gave this, I think initially I gave this book 5 stars. And I think now that I think about it, it's closer to a 4 stars for me. Basically, I think the reason I gave this 4 stars versus 5 stars is, see, this is the thing with me in reviewing and rating books that I find really hard, is I gave this 4 stars, but at the end of the day, I don't think domestic thrillers are for me. And the aspects of the book that made me want to give it 4 stars are very strong aspects to domestic thrillers. So there's a lot of in-between times that I was just bored. Like this book, as much as I finished it rather quickly and I was intrigued, there was a lot that just dragged on for me, and there was a lot that I didn't really care about. So I think that was really hard for me at times, and I think that's just an aspect of domestic thrillers, that if you love domestic thrillers, you're gonna love this book. I don't love domestic thrillers, so I didn't fully heartedly love this book. But that's not necessarily the book's fault. Like, it follows the genre that it is. It doesn't pretend to be anything else, so I feel like me rating it kind of lower is just a personal preference. This book just had parts that were like so boring to me, and the characters, I like all the characters. I liked seeing how like their friendship and sticking together, and at the end I love the ending. There's one line in this book about letting a woman fall for a man's guilty actions, and that wasn't a quote, by the way, I definitely just like summarized it, but that I think just blew me away. And there was one part, so like I knew who did it, so I was going in here like, yeah, how's this gonna happen? And then there was one part, did not see coming, didn't see it at all, was literally agape, and I was like, oh my god. So yeah, no, like I still really enjoyed this book. I just wouldn't say it was a 4 stars for, it wasn't a 5 stars. It wasn't a full 5 stars for me. However, really enjoyed this. I think it lives up to the hype. So the second book that I read for the Buzzwordathon was Let Me Lie by Clare Mackintosh, and that was a library book, so I don't have a physical copy. I gave that 4 stars. And the thing with Let Me Lie is it's about a girl whose parents die and there are both parent suicides, and she just doesn't believe it. And it's her like a year later dealing with their deaths, and she gets this letter and it sends her on a tailspin of, oh my god, like they were murdered, it wasn't suicide. And I just, like, I gave the book 4 stars. I enjoyed it, I liked it. Again, I think it was just domestic thrillers. It's just not 100% my thing. There were parts of this book, I think the part of these books that this book bothered me was the main character. I don't even remember her name, but the daughter, she didn't feel like she had character development, to be completely honest. Like, she just like annoyed me, and her whole thing was being distraught about her parents, which, don't get me wrong, I'm sure she's probably very distraught, but it's a year later, she has a baby, she has a boyfriend, she's all these things, and it's just like, I personally felt like she deserved a little bit more characterization other than distressed about her parents. Like, I wasn't given any other personality traits to her other than like, my parents wouldn't leave me, and I just was disappointed by that, and I think that's what brought it down for me. Overall though, like, I liked the mystery, I liked how it unfolded, and I liked hearing about it. There were, like, it made me think, like, I was like in the bathroom taking off my makeup after reading it, and I was like, oh, what if it was this person, and these, like, here are all the reasons why. But yeah, I really liked Let Me Lie. 4 stars. So like I said, Let Me Lie was a library book, and while I was at the library, I saw I Let You Go by Clare Mackintosh, which was like huge on BookTube when it first came out. It's like her rise to fame book, so I picked it up because there were like 7 copies at my library. So I picked it up, and I wanted to wait after Let Me Lie because I was like, oh, this is like the good book. This book's like what made her. Spoiler, I don't agree. I gave that, I think I'm gonna give it like 2.5 stars for I Let You Go. I was bored. I didn't like any of the twists. I just didn't like it. Basically, the summary of the book was that a young boy, he's like 5 years old, is hit by a car and he dies immediately, and the driver flees the scene. And it's set up as you are going to like the mystery of who killed this boy and why they fled, and like the grief that the mother is experiencing, and you're gonna go on that journey. And you do not. The young boy is killed within the first 2 pages. Like, literally it's just him getting hit by a car, and I feel like, but you don't care about him. Like, you're like, oh my god, a 5-year-old boy is killed and it's a big deal and you have to figure this out, and I just feel like that development was not there. Like, he's just killed, and then suddenly you're on a weird hut in some random place in Wales. It's just like, what? Like, what's happening? And then you're also like being told the perspectives of the cops who are investigating the murder and like the hit and run and who was the driver. And I just feel like this book was all over the place, and I didn't like where it ended up, basically. I would honestly like cut this book in half. Not that they're different books, but it's 2 different plots. So you have this first plot with this, like, you know, this woman in a hut dealing with the grief of the young child, and then you have the detectives trying to find who killed them, and like the issues the police have with their investigations on like a simply like bureaucratic level, which I appreciate. The writer actually was a cop, so she can use her real-time experience to write about. I did enjoy that part. I didn't enjoy the characters of the detectives and their personal lives whatsoever. I just felt like it wasn't really necessary, to be honest. I did go into knowing that this book was going to be about grief. I feel like I was ready for that ride. And it didn't feel like that to me. It's hard to talk about this book without mentioning the twist, because I feel like the twist just... First half of the book, grief. Twist happens, and you go, what? Second half of the book, and I hated it. I hated the second half. It just goes on a completely different turn, which is not bad. This book fell into the pit holes of domestic thrillers in the second part that I find boring and that drag on for me and are unrealistic. Like, this first half of the book was promising to be this emotional story about a woman going over, like, grieving, and the detectives who are trying to solve a case that is horrific but happens all the time, and like these are the problems that they face in their personal lives and their careers, and why these cases aren't solved immediately. And I really liked that. And then the second half is just stereotypical thrillers in an unrealistic way, and it fell flat for me, and I was severely disappointed with it. I was disappointed. That's all I can really say about it. Alright, so the final book that I read was Before We Were Yours by Lisa Wingate. So this is a contemporary and a historical fiction at the same time. It changes perspectives, and it's based around a true crime that happened in Memphis in like the 1920s to the 1950s. There was this woman called Georgia Tan. Georgia Tan is evil. So basically, in between the 1920s and 1950s, she would steal children of poor people. That's literally the basics. Like, she stole children from poor and marginalized people, put them into these homes, physically, sexually, emotionally abused them. Very heavily hinted that she murdered a couple of them, and then the ones who lived through it were sold to rich families, and then these rich families were blackmailed into giving more money. And basically, Georgia Tan is the devil in heels. And this book is trying to talk about that crime, because it's something that this scandal happened in Tennessee and it's been hushed because a lot of these children went on to go into respectable, wealthy families who in the South have kind of these social pressures to be this perfect family, and they don't want these scandals coming out. So this book tries to tackle that in telling you the story of a young woman in present day who's the daughter of a politician, and she has to come back home and basically pick up the torch for the family because her father has fallen ill. So she needs to come back home and take over his political tours and everything. And then at the same time that she does that, there's flashbacks to this girl Rill, who is a river rat. So basically, she lives on the Mississippi, I believe. Yeah, she lives on the Mississippi River with her family and 5 other siblings. She and her siblings are separated from her parents, and they're put through this whole process of that Georgia Tan had going on. So you are reading from both perspectives of both women and figuring out how their stories intertwine. And this book, so I don't like contemporaries, I don't like historical fictions. My mother gave me this book for Christmas. She read it before me. She said it was really, really good. Reading the summary, I was interested. That sounds really cool and I want to hear about it. Those type of books are hard for me to pick up. They're just something that when I want to read thrillers, I want to read horror, I want to read fantasy. So it was something that I really struggled to pick up. And I was like, why don't I pick it up in audiobook format? Maybe that'll get me through it. And I really, really liked the first half of the audiobook. It did make me emotional, her talking about the relationship with her father, the woman in contemporary. Maybe I'll look up her name. Avery. Avery is the woman who's living in contemporary, and then it's Rill who's living in the 1920s and being sold into hell, basically. So Avery, I really liked Avery. I liked hearing about her family in the South and the social pressures that they have, as not only, she's a daughter of a politician and she's expected to also follow into his footsteps, but she also has her own life in the East Coast as a lawyer with her fiance and her friends, and she's kind of battling being both at the same time. Real story opens up with her mother giving birth and having trouble, and they have to go to the hospital, and it's about her life on her boat with her siblings, and basically she was the oldest, so she had to take care of everyone. And I really liked the beginning, like 4 chapters, and then oh my god, I think I've come to the conclusion that audiobooks are not for me. I'm really, really picky about them. I'm still gonna like give them a try, but I'm really, really picky about audiobooks, and this one was so slow. And I sped it up, and it was still super slow, and I have been trying to read this book for so long, and I just couldn't do it anymore. Like, it was annoying. So I just was like, nope, we're not doing this. 14 more hours? Nope, not today. So I paused it, read it, finished it in like 3 hours. So this book has kind of been, the audiobook experience was not great for me, which has kind of dampened my my preference of this book. However, I still give this book like 4 stars. I really, really liked it. I think it's really great. It definitely sheds light on things that I didn't know was happening in the South back in the 1920s and 1950s, and like hundreds and thousands of people were affected by this one woman's crimes, and it's been hushed over a lot. This book was really good. I enjoyed it. I liked Avery in the beginning. By the end, I didn't like her storyline. Her father and her family and everything that she had going on in the beginning chapters were just thrown away to keep uncovering this mystery around her grandmother and this woman in the nursing home and all these things, and I just feel like her story really fell flat for me, and like she gets like a love triangle in the last couple chapters that like wasn't necessary. So yeah, I think Avery's story flatlines for me, but Real story gets really good for me, and so I think it saves itself. Yeah. So in summary, I give this 4 stars. Yeah, those are the books I read, you guys. Those are the books that I finished in January. I read a lot of books. I've kind of been jumping all over the place. I started Nightmares and Dreamscapes by Stephen King. I started We Are Where the Nightmares Go by Robert C. Cargill, I believe. I don't have it in front of me, but I started that one. I started A Darker Shade of Magic, and I did not start my TBR jar, Katie Morton's The Clockmaker's Daughter. That was the one that I was like, I'm probably not gonna get to, and I was right. But overall, I've had a really good reading month. I finished 5 books, and I've started a lot more that I'm really excited about. And I started another book. It's called The Lost Traveler, but I don't know the author, and it's like a cozy mystery. I'll probably finish that one like within the next couple of days. But overall, it's been like a really good reading month for me, and I hope this keeps going for the rest of 2019. But thank you very much for watching. I super duper appreciate it. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye!